Chapter 1271. The old man led Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing towards the north. After flying for a while, the terrain became more remote. "Senior, does Miss Ji Hongshan live here?" Lu Ming asked with a suspicious look in his eyes. "Miss Ji has a courtyard here. The environment is elegant and quiet. She usually likes to invite guests here," the old man explained with a kind expression. "Oh?" Lu Ming nodded and continued to fly forward with the old man. "Lu Ming, I feel that something is wrong." Xian Yanqing transmitted his voice to Lu Ming. "Yes, let's keep looking." Lu Ming nodded. After flying for a while, the terrain became more remote. "Senior, please wait for a moment." At this moment, Lu Ming suddenly spoke. The old man stopped and turned around. "Young Master Lu, what's the matter? We're almost there. You weren't sent by Ji Hongshan, were you?" Lu Ming's eyes turned cold as he suddenly spoke. The old man's expression suddenly changed. He revealed a forced smile and said, "Young Master Lu, are you mistaken? I was indeed sent by Miss Ji. How dare you lie to me? Miss Ji Hongshan just transmitted her voice to me. She said that she was looking for me at General Peak, but she couldn't find me. If you were sent by her, why would you look for me personally?" Lu Ming's voice turned cold. His words made the old man's expression change drastically and become extremely gloomy. Swoosh! He suddenly struck his palm towards Lu Ming's heart. A violent pressure surged towards Lu Ming like a storm. A perfected spiritual god! This old man's cultivation was at the perfected spiritual god realm. His sudden attack was terrifying. However, Lu Ming was already prepared. The dragon power in his body erupted as he also struck out with his palm. Bang! The two palms collided. The old man's body seemed to have been struck by lightning. One of his arms directly exploded into pieces. He frantically retreated and spat out blood. "Who are you? Who sent you?" Lu Ming's gaze was extremely gloomy, and cold murderous intent burst out. "Humph, Lu Ming, you're lucky," the old man said with a cold face. "I'm not lucky. Ji Hongshan didn't look for me at all. I was just talking nonsense," Lu Ming said indifferently. When he said that Ji Hongshan went to look for him, he didn't. He just wanted to trick the old man. He didn't expect that the old man had ulterior motives. "You!" The elder was so angry that he spat out another mouthful of blood. His expression was extremely ugly. He had lived for thousands of years. He did not expect to be fooled by a young man like Lu Ming. "Tell me, who sent you here? I'll give you a quick death!" Lu Ming's Waxai's eyes. Boom! 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 At this moment, wisps of smoke-like aura rose from all directions. They were incomparably terrifying and powerful. There was a total of 6 of them, and each of them carried an aura that was significantly stronger than the old man before him. Supreme Martial Artists, 6 Supreme Martial Artists. Rip! The space cracked open. 6 figures stepped out from the crack and stood around Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing, blocking their way out. The 6 figures were wrapped in black robes. Their faces and figures were hidden in the black robes. "You really think highly of me? You sent 6 Supremes!" Lu Ming sneered. He was guessing in his heart who had such great power. This was the South God Palace. Only a powerful force like the South God Palace could send 6 Supremes to kill him. Was it the Mu clan or the Wang clan? Kill! Kill! The 6 Supremes didn't waste any time. They attacked directly. A terrifying pressure pressed down on Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing. At the same time, 6 terrifying attacks fell on the 2 of them. "Sky Demon Force Field!" Xian Yanqing pressed her hands together. A terrifying force field spread out in all directions with her as the center. As soon as the 6 Supremes entered the Sky Demon Force Field, their bodies froze and their faces changed. With Xian Yanqing's current combat strength, she was able to affect the Supremes. "Kill!" Lu Ming bellowed. His 3rd bloodline emerged, making him even more powerful. He took a step in the void and instantly approached a supreme being. Boom! Lu Ming threw out a punch. The other party threw out a palm at the same time. There was a loud boom. Lu Ming didn't move, but the other party's bodies shook violently. He flew back like a cannonball and spat out a mouthful of blood. This scene caused everyone's hearts to tremble wildly. Lu Ming's combat strength was too shocking. He injured a Supremes with a single move. Was this the strength of the number one in this assessment? Was this the strength of the number one genius in the godly ruins continent? Activate your bloodline. Kill him with all your might, one of the Supremes said. A bloodline floated above his head, and he performed bloodline fusion. The other 5 Supremes also performed bloodline fusion. Be destroyed! Xian Yanqing also performed bloodline fusion and turned into a beautiful sky demon. The sky demon force field was even more terrifying. At the same time, the force field was filled with a powerful destructive force. It made it difficult for the 6 Supremes to move. Roar! A dragon's roar was heard. Lu Ming turned into 9 dragons and pounced on the 6 Supremes. Bam! With just one move, one of the Supremes was beaten until he spat out a mouthful of blood and was forced to retreat. If the other Supremes hadn't come to his rescue in time, Lu Ming would have taken the opportunity to kill the Supremes. In the sky, a man in a black robe stood in the void and looked at the battle below. Lu Ming was familiar with one of the young men. It was young Master Lin of the Celestial Sect. At this moment, young Master Lin looked ferocious and murderous as he looked at the battle below. This kid is really talented. He's considered good even in the Yuan continent. Unfortunately, if he doesn't join the Celestial Sect, he can only be killed. Beside young Master Lin was a middle-aged man. He was one of the 2 middle-aged men of the Celestial Sect. Humph, I've already investigated. My son Mu Ju was killed by this kid. He must die. Beside the middle-aged man of the Celestial Sect, there were 2 other black-robed men. One of them said coldly. At this moment, the battle below was even more intense. The 6 Supremes cooperated well. However, Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing cooperated and their combat strength was equally shocking. Especially Lu Ming, who was invincible. Buzz! Above the 9 dragons, a lightning cauldron appeared. It was as big as a mountain and crashed towards one of the Supremes. Bam! That Supreme spat out a mouthful of blood. His body was charred and he almost exploded. The 9 dragons roared and a devouring force burst out, shrouding the opponent. Then, a claw reached out and grabbed at the opponent. No! Save me! The Supremes screamed in fear. The other Supremes wanted to help, but Lu Ming controlled the lightning cauldron. Thousands of lightning bolts spread out and blocked the Supremes. Puchi! The 9 dragons' dragon claw clawed into the dantian of the primordial being. The terrifying power shattered the body of the primordial being, and grabbed the primordial being's spiritual spirit. The spiritual deity had the appearance of an old man. His face was filled with endless fear. Spare me! He wanted to beg for mercy, but the dragon claw squeezed and the spiritual deity exploded. A Supremes was killed by Lu Ming. Chapter 1272. Lu Ming killed the Supreme Being with lightning speed, which made the other 5 Supreme Beings' faces change drastically. They were almost scared to death as they retreated frantically. In the sky, the burly man from the Heavenly Divinity Sect, young Master Lin, and the others' faces turned gloomy. Especially the burly man from the Heavenly Divinity Sect, his eyes were burning with passion. This lightning cauldron is amazing. It's beyond the category of a spiritual weapon. Could it be a holy weapon? The burly man from the Heavenly Divinity Sect muttered to himself and roared in his heart. Ha ha ha, my luck is too good. I didn't expect a holy weapon to exist in such a remote place like the godly ruins continent. I must get it. Below, Lu Ming didn't chase after them. Instead, he came to Xian Yanqing's side and said, Chao Qing, let's leave this place quickly. This matter wasn't simple. 6 Supreme Beings were sent to kill him at once. The force behind this must be extremely powerful. There might even be an Emperor Realm expert. Right now, the best thing to do was to leave. Xian Yanqing nodded and was about to leave with Lu Ming. In the sky, the Mu family's patriarch said coldly, Mu Yi, make a move and keep them here. Yes. Beside the Mu family's patriarch, a figure wrapped in a black robe bowed and accepted the order. Then, he took a step forward. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing were about to return to where they came from. Suddenly, an extremely terrifying aura burst out. A terrifying pressure pressed down on Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing. An Emperor Realm expert! Lu Ming's face changed drastically as he exclaimed. Sure enough, there was an Emperor Realm expert behind this matter. When the Supreme Beings were defeated, an Emperor Realm expert appeared. A black-robed figure appeared in the sky. His appearance couldn't be seen clearly. He stretched out a withered claw and grabbed at Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing. Suddenly, an incomparably huge claw as big as a mountain grabbed at Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing. The terrifying pressure made Lu Ming feel a little suffocated even though he was far away from it. A ruler was too terrifying. Although Supreme Beings were known as half-step rulers, their combat prowess was far inferior to a real ruler. The withered claws covered the sky and completely enveloped Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing. There was no way for them to escape. Shao Qing, enter the mountain and river diagram! Lu Ming roared. At the same time, he crazily poured his quintessence into the lightning furnace. The lightning furnace's aura became even stronger. 1. The lightning cauldron turned into the size of the withered claw and slammed into it. No, I won't enter the mountain and river diagram! Xian Yanqing stubbornly shook her head. The space between her eyebrows glowed as a black bead appeared. A terrifying devil chi rippled out from the bead. The devil chi gathered and formed a beam of devil chi that shot towards the withered claw. Boom! Boom! 2 heaven-shaking explosions rang out, and a terrifying force swept out for tens of thousands of miles, startling countless people. What's going on? What happened? Someone is fighting a great battle. Who is fighting such a terrifying battle? It seems to be an emperor. There's a battle between emperors. A burst of noise rang out in the night sky, but no one dared to go closer to watch. What a joke. If one was too close to a battle between emperors, one would only die if one was accidentally involved. Clang! The lightning cauldron shook violently and was sent flying back to Lu Ming's head. Lu Ming's body trembled violently as he retreated a few thousand meters and spat out a mouthful of blood. Xian Yanqing was the same. Her devil chi beam was destroyed and she retreated a few thousand meters. However, the black bead between her eyebrows released a layer of light that protected Xian Yanqing. Therefore, Xian Yanqing was slightly better than Lu Ming. Her delicate body trembled, but she did not vomit blood. This made Lu Ming heave a sigh of relief. Xian Yanqing's black bead was obtained in the ruins of God. Its mysteries were beyond imagination. Although the two of them were repelled, they had successfully blocked the withered claw. Amazing! Amazing! This scene made the middle-aged man of the celestial god sect sigh. The two of them were just juniors, but they were able to block the attack of an emperor. This was absolutely terrifying. Humph! This made the Mu family's patriarch's face gloomy and ugly. He felt that he had lost face. Mu Yi, go all out. Don't show mercy. It's fine as long as you don't kill them. The Mu family's patriarch transmitted his voice to Mu Yi. Kill! Upon receiving the order, Mu Yi roared, and his aura became even more violent. He stretched out his withered hands and grabbed 2 claws in a row. 2 huge claws condensed and grabbed at Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing. Each of the 2 claws was stronger than the previous one. What was shocking was that the 2 claws merged into one halfway and turned into a claw that emitted a withered aura. It grabbed at Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing. The power of this claw was even more shocking. Dandan! Bubble! With a thought, Dandan and Bubble appeared on Lu Ming's shoulder. Lu Ming, I knew you would come for me. I have a hard life. Dandan flew out from Lu Ming's shoulder while cursing. Its body began to grow crazily, and its aura rose sharply. Mouth, world! Dandan roared and opened its mouth. A mass of chaotic light flew out from its mouth. There seemed to be a world in the light. A world flew towards the withered giant claw. At the same time, a huge transparent bubble appeared from Bubble's mouth and suddenly appeared around the withered claw. As soon as the transparent bubble appeared, the withered claw was fixed in the air, unable to move. This is the space and time concept? Mu Yi let out a cry of disbelief and then roared. Break for me! The withered claw emitted light and the transparent bubble began to vibrate. Chirp, chirp, Bubble cried. Its snow-white hair emitted a milky white light as if it was using all its strength. At this time, Dandan's attack had also arrived. It directly passed through the transparent bubble and blasted on the withered claw. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing's attacks also arrived one after another. Boom! The shriveled claw crumbled under the continuous attacks. Mu Ye's body trembled and actually took a step back, stepping on the void with a rumbling sound. How is this possible? What are those two things? Young Master Lin and the Mu family head cried out. The power exerted by Dandan and Bubble was too terrifying. The middle-aged man from the celestial sect also suddenly widened his eyes and stared at Dandan and Bubble. He whispered in disbelief, This seems to be very similar to two of the legendary top 10 battle beasts. His heart began to beat rapidly as his eyes burned with passion. At the same time, his eyes were filled with disbelief. Didn't the legend say that the top 10 battle beasts had all fallen? How could they reappear in the world? Could it be that they had the bloodline of the top 10 battle beasts and were not purebred? Even so, they were still priceless. Continue. Below, Lu Ming shouted and controlled the thunder cauldron. The sky was filled with thunder and lightning as it attacked Mu Yi. Now Lu Ming was going to fight back. So what if he was an emperor? Whoosh! The bead between Xian Yanqing's eyebrows shot out a demonic light. The demonic light turned into a battle sword and slashed out. Chapter 1273. A transparent bubble abruptly appeared beside Mu Yi without any warning and enveloped him. This transparent bubble contained the concepts of time and space. It was extremely mysterious. The combination of the two concepts came without any warning. It was simply unavoidable. By the time Mu Yi reacted, it was already too late. The concept of space was still fine, but the concept of time was too mysterious. The bubble was still small and could not fully display the mysteries of time. It could only use methods like time freeze to imprison the enemy. If the enemy's cultivation was too strong, they could also break through it. It was said that when the concept of time reached a high level, it could turn back time. In an instant, it could make a peerless expert return to his childhood, to the era before cultivation, and be at your mercy. Or, it could accelerate time and make a peerless expert instantly become old and close to the end of his lifespan. At that point, it was hard to imagine how terrifying its power would be. Mu Yi was enveloped by the transparent bubble, and his figure froze in place. Break, break! Mu Yi roared. His cultivation base as a ruler erupted. His true essence boiled like a raging flame. The transparent bubble shook violently as if it would burst at any time. Chirp, chirp! The bubble chirped. Its two small claws continuously clawed at the void. Suddenly, a shocking scene appeared. The surrounding void shattered like glass and turned into pieces of crystal. Then, several spatial blades were condensed and slashed toward Mu Yi. At the same time, Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, and Dandan's attacks also arrived. The moment the transparent bubble was shattered by Mu Yi, 4 terrifying attacks landed on Mu Yi at the same time. At the critical moment, Mu Yi activated his domain to cover his whole body. At the same time, he circulated his true essence to form a true essence armor on his body. Boom! The first attack was Dandan's. Ever since Dandan swallowed a myriad spirit crystal last time, it had been recovering rapidly. Its strength had improved by leaps and bounds, and it was getting stronger and stronger. The mouth world was Dandan's innate ability. It was like a real world that enveloped Mu Yi. The power of the world was constantly erasing Mu Yi's domain power and true essence power. Whoosh! The second attack was Xian Yanqing's demonic light. The demonic light was like a sword that could destroy everything. Combined with Dandan's world force, it shook Mu Yi's domain, causing it to shake violently. Kacha! In the end, there was a cracking sound, as if glass had broken. In the next moment, Lu Ming's lightning cauldron arrived. Thousands of lightning bolts completely submerged Mu Yi. The endless lightning energy was like poisonous snakes that drilled into Mu Yi. With a loud bang, Mu Ye's domain power was completely shattered. The attacks of the three continued to bombard Mu Ye's quintessential energy armor. But at this time, Bubble's space blade arrived, breaking through Mu Ye's true essence armor and blasting towards his body. Bang! 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 Each of the 4 attacks caused Mu Ye's body to tremble violently. He was forced to retreat again and again. In the end, he even spat out a mouthful of blood. The sovereign was injured. And sovereign was actually injured by Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, and 2 small pets. If this news were to spread, no one would believe it and think it was a joke. But now, it really happened. Is this the sovereign's spiritual body? It's really powerful. Lu Ming frowned. He was somewhat dissatisfied with such a result. Not only had the sovereign comprehended the power of a domain, but his body had also turned into a spiritual body. The spiritual body, whether it was in terms of attack, defense, or vitality, was terrifyingly high. It had completely surpassed the mortal body and reached another realm. The attacks of the 4 people broke through Mu Ye's domain and quintessential energy armor, directly attacking Mu Ye's body. However, they only managed to push him back and slightly injure him. Lu Ming was somewhat dissatisfied, but Mu Yi was about to go crazy. He was a dignified sovereign. Not only could he not take down a few juniors, but he was also repelled and even injured by them. This was a great humiliation. If word got out, he would become a laughingstock among the sovereigns. Moreover, the patriarch of the Mu family and the powerhouses of the heavenly god sect were watching from the sky. Kill! At this moment, his killing intent was incomparably cold. He decided to no longer care about the lives of Lu Ming and the others. He wanted to take them down. However, in the next moment, a transparent bubble suddenly appeared and enveloped him, causing him to freeze in the air. Then, another 4 attacks came crashing down on his face. Boom! 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 With a series of explosions, Mu Ye's body shook violently again. He was repelled and spat out another mouthful of blood. He was injured again. Just like last time, although it was only a minor injury, it made him go crazy. Oh! He roared crazily in his heart, and his eyes were red. Aggrieved, really aggrieved. He was a dignified emperor, and was very powerful. However, when faced with Lu Ming and the rest, he could not even retaliate. That transparent bubble was silent, and there were no signs at all. Just as he was about to retaliate, it suddenly appeared. He was so aggrieved that he wanted to vomit blood. Then, he was enveloped by another transparent bubble. He simply wanted to roar to the sky. How could they play like this? Humph, what a piece of trash. I have to do it myself. In the sky, the patriarch of the Mu family looked terrible. He snorted coldly and stepped out. Rumble! A giant foot suddenly appeared in the sky and stomped down on Lu Ming and the others. Oh no! Lu Ming's face became very ugly. The power contained in this giant foot was too shocking and terrifying. It made Lu Ming feel that he couldn't resist it. Lu Ming had felt this feeling from the black-robed middle-aged man of the Southern Divine Palace. This was the aura of a LV3 Martial Emperor expert. There was a huge gap between each LV3 Martial Emperor. Mu Yi was only a LV1 Martial Emperor. The gap between him and a LV3 Martial Emperor was too big. It's over, it's over. I'm finished. Lu Ming, who did you offend? Dandan wailed. Xian Yanqing's face was also very ugly. In the face of a LV3 Martial Emperor, they didn't even have the strength to fight back. The bubble's space-time imprisonment was useless against such an expert. The gap was too big. Chirp chirp. At this time, the bubble cried, and its chubby body emitted a dazzling light. It waved its claws, and a passage suddenly appeared in the void. A passage full of time and space intent, space-time passage. Chirp chirp. Bubbles shouted and took the lead to rush in. Let's go! Without the slightest hesitation, Lu Ming pulled Xian Yanqing and rushed into the space-time passage. As soon as they entered the passage, Lu Ming felt that the surrounding environment was changing rapidly. In a flash, the stars moved. The surrounding environment was changing, and they were heading towards the ruins of God. Bang! Chapter 1274. The Mu family head's face turned cold as he looked into the distance and whispered, "The ruins of God! Chase!" At this moment, the middle-aged man from the heavenly divine sect spoke. He took a step forward and the space in front of him split open automatically. He took young Master Lin into the space crack and disappeared. The Mu family head and Mu Yi also tore the space apart and chased after Lu Ming and the others. In a flash, the space above the ruins of God cracked open. The middle-aged man from the heavenly divine sect, the Mu family head, and the others appeared. "They escaped into the ruins of God," the Mu family head said with a solemn expression. "Why aren't you chasing?" the middle-aged man from the heavenly divine sect asked. "This place is the ruins of God. It's very dangerous. Even emperors have the risk of dying if they enter," the Mu family head said. "Even emperors are in danger? Hee, I think you're exaggerating. I just used my spiritual consciousness to scan carefully. This place is just a ruin. There are no living creatures. How can it be dangerous?" The middle-aged man from the heavenly divine sect smiled faintly. He had enough confidence. He didn't believe that there would be any place in the ruins of God that could threaten him. But the Mu family head and Mu Yi were hesitant. The legends of the ruins of God made them very wary. Emperors are actually afraid of this and that. How can they achieve great things? Fine, if you don't go, I'll go myself, the middle-aged man from the heavenly divine sect said lightly with a slight disdain in his voice. Not to mention that he didn't believe that this place would bring him any danger. Even if there was a little danger, he still had to try. Lu Ming's thunder cauldron was suspected to be a sacred weapon, which made him drool. Needless to say, Dandan and Bubbles might have the bloodlines of the top 10 battle beasts. This made him even more tempted. If he could take them and train them well, they would be a great help in the future. He was determined to get all of this. The middle-aged man from the heavenly divine sect stepped out and headed into the ruins of God. Young Master Lin followed closely behind. The Mu family head and Mu Yi looked at each other with uncertain eyes. In the end, they gritted their teeth and followed the middle-aged man into the ruins of God. It wasn't easy for them to curry favor with the heavenly divine sect. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and they didn't want to miss it. They quickly passed the outer area of the ruins of God and entered the inner area. They passed through the inner region and appeared outside the core region. The middle-aged man from the celestial gods sect did not hesitate at all. He stepped into the core area with the Mu family head and the others following behind him. There were some incomplete formations in the core area. Some of them were quite powerful, but they did not pose any threat to a third-layer martial dominator realm expert. "You're scared out of your wits just by these broken formations?" The middle-aged man from the heavenly divinity sect smiled. The Mu family's patriarch didn't make a sound. He was still on guard. He had never entered the core of the divine ruins before. He only knew that this place was very dangerous. Even a ruler would die if he entered. As for the specific dangers, he did not know. Soon, they passed through a large area and arrived in front of an intact palace. "There's actually an intact palace here?" The Mu family's patriarch revealed a puzzled look. "Lu Ming and the others are in this palace. They won't be able to escape." The middle-aged man from the heavenly divinity sect laughed casually. The Mu family's patriarch and Mu Yi nodded. Both of them carefully sensed the aura of Lu Ming's group in the hall. Other than Lu Ming's group, there were no other auras. "I'll go and chase them out," Mu Yi took the initiative to ask. Previously, he was injured by Lu Ming's group, which made him feel ashamed. Now, he was eager to prove himself. After saying that, Mu Yi stepped out. The aura of a ruler spread out from his body. "Do you think hiding in a broken palace is going to work?" I'll destroy this broken palace and make you come out, Mu Yi said coldly. He pressed his claw against the void, and a withered claw as big as a mountain was formed. It grabbed at the palace, wanting to crush it. Whoosh! At this moment, a jet-black spear light pierced through the air from within the palace. In an instant, it smashed the withered claw into pieces. Whoosh! Then, a second spear light appeared in the palace. Its target was Mu Yi. The speed of the spear light was unimaginably fast. It arrived in front of Mu Yi in a flash. Puff! Mu Yi did not even have time to react before his body was pierced by the spear light. A hole appeared in his dantian. What realm? What spiritual body? They were as fragile as tofu in front of the spear light. Mu Yi's eyes were wide open. His eyes were filled with unwillingness and disbelief. Slowly, the vitality in his eyes dissipated and completely disappeared. Mu Yi had fallen. How is this possible? Who is it? The master of the Mu family and the middle-aged man of the celestial sect were shocked. They shouted in disbelief. They clearly did not sense any vitality in the palace. How could an attack be launched? Moreover, it was so shocking. It killed an emperor in one move. Lu Ming! In the next moment, their eyes widened. They saw two figures walking out of the palace hand in hand. It was Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing. It's you! Lu Ming looked at young Master Lin and the middle-aged man of the celestial sect. His face was gloomy. I didn't expect the celestial sect of Yuan Lu to be so despicable. You're not my match, but you attacked me secretly. Hee hee, I'm glad I didn't join such a sect. Lu Ming sneered. His voice was full of mockery. Kid, what did you say? Young Master Lin scolded. His face was ugly. Lu Ming was obviously talking about him. How dare you? Since when did you have the right to comment on the celestial sect's actions? The middle-aged man of the celestial sect said in a deep voice. Hee hee! Lu Ming laughed in disdain. He did not bother to look at the two of them. He looked at the master of the Mu family and said, I want to know who you are. Why did you send someone to kill me? Evidently, the six great and most exalted and the Emperor realm expert from before were all sent by that person. You killed my son Mu Ju. Do you think I should kill you? The master of the Mu family said in a deep voice. He took off his black hat and revealed a gloomy face. Mu family. It's the Mu family, Lu Ming muttered. He had guessed that it was either the Mu family or the Wang family. Since you want to kill me, bring it on, Lu Ming said calmly. The master of the Mu family and the middle-aged man of the celestial sect were shocked. They looked at the palace with fear. The spear radiance had killed a LV-1 martial royal realm martial artist. Its combat strength was no weaker than a LV-3 martial royal realm martial artist. Humph, who cares who he is? Since he doesn't dare to show himself, he can't be that strong. Let's attack together. Take down Lu Ming and leave quickly, the middle-aged man of the celestial sect said. All right. The master of the Mu family nodded. Chapter 1275. Almost at the same time, the two of them attacked. Two terrifying auras bloomed in the core of the ruins of deity. The master of the Mu family was a genuine LV-3 martial royal realm expert. He was stronger than CL1 and D. He formed a giant hand and grabbed at Lu Ming. As for the burly man from the heavenly god sect, his aura was unfathomable. Lin Fan could only sense that he was much stronger than the master of the Mu family. He waved his hand and a giant bird appeared. It opened its mouth and bit at Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing were stunned. However, they remained calm and stood still at the door of the palace. Those who trespass in the space-time spiritual palace will be killed. Suddenly, a cold voice came from the palace. The voice was cold and emotionless, without the slightest trace of emotion. Swoosh! Swoosh! Two spear radiances shot out from the palace. The black spear radiances with terrifying radiance collided with the attacks of the master of the Mu family and the burly man from the heavenly god sect. The two attacks were penetrated by the spear radiances. However, the two spear radiances disappeared. Roar! A dragon roar shook the heavens and earth. Bang! 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 Following which, a massive creature slowly walked out from the palace. Every step it took caused the ground to tremble. When the Mu family's patriarch, young Master Lin, and the middle-aged man from the celestial god sect saw the giant creature walking out of the palace, their pupils shrank as they revealed shocked expressions. The behemoth that walked out of the palace was naturally the headless true dragon knight. Bubble had brought Lu Ming and the rest to the core of the ruins of deity through the space-time tunnel. Lu Ming had the Chaos Origin token. The headless true dragon rider treated Lu Ming as one of its own. However, the master of the Mu family and the rest did not have the Chaos Origin token. Moreover, they attacked the palace. Naturally, they were attacked by the headless true dragon rider. The headless true dragon rider was formed after the death of a supreme expert. It was not a living creature. Therefore, the master of the Mu family and the burly man from the heavenly god sect could not sense it. "Kill without mercy," said the headless true dragon rider. It was unknown where the voice came from, but then a shocking dragon roar sounded out. The headless true dragon stretched out a dragon claw and grabbed towards the Mu family's clan leader. As the dragon claw swiped out, it rapidly grew in size. In the end, it covered the sky and the sun, enveloping the entire world. Under the dragon claw, space could not withstand a single blow and was reduced to a mess. Eternal clear sky! The Mu family's patriarch felt a fatal threat. He raised his head to the sky and roared. He punched out, and an ancient tree that looked like the legendary world god tree smashed towards the dragon claw. This attack was the strongest attack of the Mu clan's patriarch. It combined the power of the realm and the spiritual body, making it extremely powerful. Ordinary LV2 martial royal realm cultivators would be severely injured or even killed by this attack. But in the next moment, the Mu family's patriarch's pupils contracted sharply. Because, when the dragon claw fell, the ancient tree that he struck out couldn't even hold up for a breath. It disintegrated into energy and dissipated, but the dragon claw didn't stop and continued to claw towards the Mu family's patriarch. This claw sealed the void. Even if the Mu family had wanted to escape, he could not do so. "Save me!" The Mu family's patriarch was scared. He let out a loud roar. His spiritual body shone and the power of the realm spread out. He punched out crazily with both fists. But under the dragon claw, everything was useless. It was futile. The Mu family's patriarch's attack and defense were like tofu under the dragon claw. They couldn't withstand a single blow. On the side, the burly man from the celestial god sect wanted to help. He launched an attack at the dragon claw, but he couldn't shake the dragon claw at all. "No!" The Mu family's patriarch roared in despair. In the next moment, the dragon claw covered his body and began to shrink. The Mu family's patriarch was caught in the dragon claw. "No, spare my life, spare my life!" The Mu family's patriarch roared in horror. "Kill!" The headless true dragon rider's voice was emotionless. As the dragon claw clenched, the Mu family's patriarch's body exploded with a bang. His body and soul were destroyed. Whoosh whoosh, the rider on the true dragon rider's neck actually emitted a powerful suction force, absorbing all of the Mu family's blood essence and energy. Lu Ming lamented in his heart. If he were to refine the sovereign's blood essence, he would definitely be able to upgrade the prison-suppressing steel bloodline to level 9 divine rank. At the same time, Lu Ming was secretly shocked. The headless true dragon rider was too strong. That headless true dragon was definitely a pure-blooded true dragon. He didn't know what realm it had reached when it was alive, but it was definitely an invincible existence. It could still maintain such a powerful combat strength after so many years. "Damn it, let's go!" The middle-aged man from the celestial god sect was terrified. The headless true dragon rider's strength was far beyond his expectations. Although his cultivation was much stronger than the Mu family's patriarch, facing the headless true dragon rider, he felt a sense of impending disaster. After the Mu family's patriarch was killed, he didn't hesitate to tear the space apart and escape with young Master Lin. Kill! The headless true dragon rider roared coldly again. Then, it clawed out again. A black dragon claw covered the sky, grabbing towards the middle-aged man and young Master Lin. The terrifying power not only made the middle-aged man's face change, but also almost scared young Master Lin to death. Ah, run, run! Young Master Lin screamed like a madman. The dragon claw clawed down, sealing the space in all directions. The middle-aged man from the celestial god sect was in the same situation as the Mu family's patriarch. He couldn't break the space apart at all. The dragon claw didn't stop and continued to claw down. Swoosh! At this moment, the middle-aged man from the celestial god sect threw young Master Lin towards the dragon claw. He took out a jade token with a pained look on his face. The true yuan in his body crazily poured into the jade token. No, no, don't! You'll die a horrible death! Young Master Lin was thrown out. He was so scared that he peed his pants and screamed crazily. He struggled with all his might. However, with his cultivation, he was as small as an ant under the dragon claw. He wasn't even worth mentioning. No, save me, Lu Ming, please let me go! Young Master Lin screamed incoherently. At this moment, his heart was filled with regret. This was all because he had taken a liking to Xian Yanqing back then and had a conflict with Lu Ming, which led to all of this. Later on, when he was defeated by Lu Ming in public, he harbored even more hatred in his heart. He bribed the middle-aged burly man of the celestial god sect with great benefits, and instigated him to deal with Lu Ming. If it wasn't for all of this, he wouldn't have ended up in this state. He screamed, but in the end, the dragon claw pressed down and young Master Lin's body exploded. Under the terrifying force, he turned into dust. The dragon claw continued to claw towards the middle-aged man from the celestial god sect. At this moment, the jade token in the celestial god sect's hand emitted a dazzling light. Then, a light sword appeared. It carried the celestial god sect's man and broke through the space, escaping rapidly. Bam! The dragon claw clawed down. One of its fingers swept towards the celestial god sect's man. Chapter 1276. The man from the heavenly god sect spat out mouthfuls of blood after being hit by the headless true dragon rider. The man from the heavenly god sect was horrified. Even with his cultivation, he could not stop the headless true dragon rider. Terrified, he used the secret talisman to break open the space and run for his life. Swoosh! Although the headless true dragon rider did not have a head, it seemed to be able to see everything. It thrust the dragon's spear in its hand forward and a brilliant spear glow pierced through the space and disappeared into the void. Ah! A cry of agony was heard from a distance away. It was the voice of the man from the heavenly god sect. Following this, the voice fell silent and completely disappeared. Come again, kill without mercy! The headless true dragon rider said coldly. It then turned around and left, disappearing from the palace. The space outside the ruins of the deity suddenly cracked open and the man from the heavenly god sect stepped out from it. At this moment, he was in a sorry state. His body was covered in blood and his face was pale. Blood continued to flow out from his mouth. There was a bloody hole in his abdomen. A terrifying force was constantly eating away at his flesh. Even with his cultivation, he could not heal it immediately. Too powerful! The man from the heavenly god sect mumbled. He stared into the depths of the ruins of the deity with fear in his eyes. His cultivation had surpassed the third layer martial royal realm. However, when facing the headless true dragon rider, he did not have much room to resist. If he did not have a life-saving treasure on him, and wanted to escape at the same time, he would have stayed in the ruins of the deity forever. Even so, he was still severely injured. It would take a few months for him to recover. How could there be such a dangerous place in the ruins of the deity? Damn it! Also, it's Lu Ming's fault. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have been severely injured. I will send a message to the Southern God Palace and ask them to keep an eye on the ruins of the deity. Once that bastard Lu Ming appears, kill him without mercy! The man from the heavenly god sect's eyes flickered with a vicious light. He pondered for a moment before turning around and leaving the place. The core of the ruins of the deity. Lu Ming looked in the direction where the man from the heavenly god sect had left and said with a frown, "That guy is too powerful. He's not dead yet. I'm afraid he won't give up. The ruins of the deity is not a place for us. Let's leave immediately." "Okay." Xian Yanqing also nodded without hesitation. The ruins of the deity sect was surrounded. Of the deity sect. Before the deity sect. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing immediately passed through the hall and exited the ruins of God from the opposite direction of the southern divine palace. To Lu Ming, there was not much of a threat in the ruins of God. Very soon, Lu Ming passed through the core of the ruins of God and rushed out of the ruins of God from another direction. Sex. Deity. Com sect S. After flying for tens of millions of miles, it finally stopped. It was obviously not feasible to return to the southern deity palace by flying across the sea. Once they returned, the man from the heavenly god sect might seize the opportunity to assassinate them. It was too dangerous. Lu Ming planned to cross the sea and return to the divine desolate continent by himself. If Lu Ming's cultivation was before he came to the deity continent, it would be too difficult for him to cross the vast sea and return to the divine desolate continent. He didn't know how much time it would take. But now, Lu Ming's cultivation had reached the 8th level of the spirit god realm. His battle strength could even suppress a supreme being. He could rely on his own strength to return to the divine desolate continent. "Little Qing, stay in the mountain and river diagram for this period of time," Lu Ming said to Xian Yanqing. Okay. Be careful," Xian Yanqing said. Xian Yanqing also knew that Lu Ming could only travel at full speed if she stayed in the mountain and river diagram. "Don't worry." Lu Ming smiled slightly. Then, a white light shot out from between his eyebrows and enveloped Xian Yanqing. In the next moment, Xian Yanqing's figure disappeared as she was taken into the mountain and river diagram. Lu Ming's figure flashed and turned into a stream of light, disappearing from the place. Soon, Lu Ming flew for hundreds of millions of miles and found a hidden place. Lu Ming entered the mountain and river diagram. Xian Yanqing sat cross-legged under the Enlightenment ancient tree, cultivating wholeheartedly. Lu Ming came to another mountain peak. With a wave of his hand, piles of origin stones appeared in front of Lu Ming. That's right, Lu Ming was about to break through. Lu Ming currently had 5 types of intents. 4 of them were at the perfection of the 4th level. Only the earth intent was at the peak of the 4th level. With his current intent cultivation, he could raise his cultivation to the peak of the 9th level of the spirit god realm. Lu Ming planned to spend some time to devour and refine origin stones to raise his cultivation to the peak of the 9th level of the spirit god realm. This way, he would be much faster when traveling. Roar! The 9 dragons appeared and opened their mouths, swallowing a large pile of origin stones. There were a few million of them. He swallowed a few million origin stones in one gulp and started to refine them quickly. A large number of origin stones were constantly refined and turned into true essence. Lu Ming almost had no bottlenecks. His cultivation was rising crazily. After refining a few million origin stones, he swallowed another few million. Lu Ming's cultivation started to soar. Early 8th level of the spirit god realm, middle 8th level of the spirit god realm, late 8th level of the spirit god realm. 7 days later, Lu Ming broke through the barrier with a large number of origin stones and reached the 9th level of the spirit god realm. After reaching the 9th level of the spirit god realm, Lu Ming still didn't stop. He continued to devour and refine origin stones to raise his cultivation. Early 9th level of the spirit god realm, middle 9th level of the spirit god realm, late 9th level of the spirit god realm. After another 7 days, Lu Ming's cultivation reached the peak of the 9th level of the spirit god realm. In a short half a month, Lu Ming's cultivation had charged from the early 8th level of the spirit god realm to the peak of the 9th level of the spirit god realm. The leap was so great that it was shocking. Of course, This was also because Lu Ming's intent had reached the requirements long ago. Otherwise, intent would become a bottleneck and obstruct Lu Ming's breakthrough. As long as Lu Ming's intent broke through, he wouldn't have any bottlenecks. However, the amount of origin stones he consumed was also terrifying. In a short half a month, Lu Ming had devoured a total of 50 million origin stones. What kind of shocking amount was this? Huff. Huff. Lu Ming exhaled. He felt that the true essence in his body was about to overflow. It was unimaginably dense. When he exhaled, it formed a storm that swept into the distance. Lu Ming stood up and took a step forward. He charged out of the mountain river diagram and appeared in the sky above a mountain range. Boom! True essence boiled on Lu Ming's body, forming a pillar of air that shot into the sky and blasted a huge hole in the sky. So strong! A trace of a smile appeared on the corner of Lu Ming's mouth. He felt that there was inexhaustible energy in his body. The true essence of a peak 9th level spirit god was too strong. It was unknown how much stronger it was than the true essence of an early 8th level spirit god realm. Now, Lu Ming was confident that when facing an ordinary prime, Lu Ming could crush them and even kill them without the help of the lightning cauldron. Of course, it was a different story for primes who had awakened a 9th level divine rank bloodline. Let's go back to the divine desolate continent now. Chapter 1277. Given Lu Ming's current cultivation, he could tear apart space and travel like a supreme being. After tearing space apart, Lu Ming stepped in and disappeared. Within the spatial rift, there were chaotic spatial storms. They were like countless terrifying sharp blades that constantly slashed at Lu Ming. Lu Ming circulated his true essence, and covered his entire body to resist the spatial storms around him. Clang! 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 The spatial storms slashed at Lu Ming's protective true essence and produced a clang. However, Lu Ming's true essence contained the 5-colored concept. The spatial storms couldn't break through Lu Ming's protective true essence at all. If a martial artist below the spiritual god realm entered this place, they would be crushed into pieces by the spatial storms in less than 2 moves. Even martial artists above the spiritual god realm wouldn't be able to last long. Only sovereigns could smoothly walk through the spatial storms. Lu Ming stepped out and walked through the spatial storms, moving forward quickly. This was a different space, so his speed was very fast. With a step, he had already traveled an unknown distance in the outside world. A moment later, the space trembled and Lu Ming reappeared in the outside world, above a lake. In just a moment, Lu Ming had crossed at least 100 million miles. However, the godly ruins continent was simply too vast. Hundreds of millions of miles were nothing to them. Lu Ming continued to tear space apart. After half a day, Lu Ming didn't know how much distance he had crossed. When Lu Ming appeared in the outside world again, he smelled the sea breeze. Looks like I've reached the seaside. I'll rest for a while before setting off, Lu Ming thought in his heart. Then, he found a place and took out an origin stone to recover. A few hours later, Lu Ming's true essence had completely recovered. Then, he flew forward. In front of him, there was a large city. From afar, it looked very majestic. Lu Ming planned to buy a sea map of the Divine Ruins continent in a big city. After all, the continents in the Divine Ruins continent were very far from each other. The area of the sea was far greater than the land, and the weather was very changeable on the sea. It was very easy to get lost, so one needed a sea map to find the Divine Wilderness continent. There are so many people in the city. Moreover, the ratio of experts is shockingly high. After flying into the city, Lu Ming discovered that the city was bustling with people coming and going. Experts could be seen walking on the streets from time to time. Some of them had extremely strong and powerful auras. There was also someone who was like an ordinary person without any aura. But with Lu Ming's current cultivation, he could still sense it. Supreme martial artist. Some of them were actually supreme beings. On the street, Lu Ming actually bumped into a few supreme beings, which made Lu Ming extremely shocked. Even in the Godly Ruins continent, supremes were high and mighty experts. It was rare to see them. Now, just by casually walking around on the street, he actually bumped into a few supremes. This was somewhat unbelievable. Something was wrong. Lu Ming felt that something was wrong. It was impossible for supreme beings to appear casually. Something must have happened here. Soon, Lu Ming went up to a restaurant. There was often a lot of information to be gathered in a restaurant. Sure enough, not long after, Lu Ming heard an important piece of news. Some time ago, there was a shocking piece of news near the southern coast of the godly ruins continent. It was said that a heaven-defying secret technique, pure spirit body, was about to be born on the southern coast. If a martial artist wanted to break through to the martial emperor realm, they had to condense a spirit body. Every martial artist had awakened different bloodlines, so the spirit body they condensed would be different, and its power would be different. A spirit body had already surpassed a mortal body. It was a world of difference compared to a mortal body. There was no comparison at all. A spirit body not only contained terrifying power, but also greatly increased one's combat strength. Moreover, the strength, defense, and recovery of a spirit body had reached an incredible level. It was not something a mortal body could compare to. Even if a ruler's hands and feet were cut off, they could quickly grow back. It was said that a peak ruler could recover even if only a small piece of flesh was left. They were simply immortal. However, it was too difficult to condense a spirit body. It was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Many supremes had comprehended the embryonic form of domains. In terms of domains, there were no big problems. However, the reason why they were stuck and some could not break through for the rest of their lives was that they could not condense a spirit body. If one could not condense a spirit body, one would not be a ruler and would never be able to break through to the martial emperor realm. Moreover, when condensing a spirit body, one would also face heavenly tribulations. The difficulty would increase with each tribulation. It was said that this secret technique called pure spirit body was not a real spirit body. This was because a spirit body was transformed from a bloodline. It had some of the attributes and functions of a bloodline. However, a pure spirit body only had pure physical strength and did not have any attributes. It only allowed a martial artist's body to have part of the power of a spirit body. For example, strength, defense, recovery, and so on. Moreover, a pure spirit body did not have any attributes. It would not obstruct the cultivation of a real spirit body in the future. Successfully cultivating a pure spirit body was equivalent to having a solid foundation. In the future, if one wanted to cultivate a real spirit body, the difficulty would be greatly reduced. This secret technique was too shocking. For martial artists below rulers, the temptation was unimaginable. Therefore, when this news spread, it caused a huge commotion. Countless powerhouses rushed to the southern coast of the Divine Ruins continent. Even many supremes were tempted and rushed over. This was also the reason why Lu Ming saw so many powerhouses in this city. The secret technique pure spirit body was too shocking. As long as one succeeded in cultivating it, the difficulty of breaking through to the ruler realm in the future would be greatly reduced, and the success rate would be greatly increased. Even Lu Ming's eyes lit up when he heard this. There's actually such a profound secret technique in the world. If I succeed in cultivating it, I'll have another powerful method to deal with Di when I return to the Divine Wilderness continent. Lu Ming thought to himself. When he returned to the Divine Wilderness continent, he would definitely face Di. Although Lu Ming's combat strength had greatly improved, it was still difficult for him to face a ruler, let alone a powerhouse like Di. He had to continue to increase his combat strength so that he would have a greater chance. Pure spirit body was undoubtedly a powerful secret technique that could close the distance between him and a ruler. If Lu Ming succeeded in cultivating it, the gap between his body and that of a ruler would not be too big. I don't know if it's true or not, but I don't care. Anyway, I'm not in a hurry to go back, so I'll stay here and observe. After making up his mind, Lu Ming found an inn nearby to stay and inquire about the news. The next day, a piece of news spread out. There might be news about pure spirit body in the Red Devil Mountains thousands of kilometers away. As soon as the news spread out, countless people rushed to the Red Devil Mountains. Lu Ming followed the crowd and rushed toward the Red Devil Mountains. The Red Devil Mountains had a radius of thousands of kilometers and were boundless. It was filled with a red demonic chi, so it was called the Red Devil Mountains. As soon as the huge crowd rushed into the Red Devil Mountains, they were like gravel scattered in the sea, unable to stir up any waves. Chapter 1278. Wandering around aimlessly like this was not a solution at all. There was no way he could find the pure spirit body. I'd better wait outside for news. Wandering around like this is purely a waste of time. Thinking of this, Lu Ming did not continue to stay and flew out of the Red Demon Mountain. Whoosh! 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 When he passed by a large canyon, a few figures rushed out of the canyon and surrounded Lu Ming. Lu Ming frowned slightly. These few people all had violent auras and were surrounded by demonic chi. They stared at Lu Ming with unfriendly eyes. Haha, another fat sheep. This is already the third one. One of the burly men laughed. Those people really thought that there was information about the pure spirit body here and ran here desperately. It's really convenient for us brothers. The more we kill, the more we can live freely for a few more years. A skinny old man sneered. Don't talk nonsense with him. Kid, it's your bad luck to bump into us. One of the burly men looked at Lu Ming coldly and walked towards Lu Ming step by step. It seems that not only do you want to rob, but you also want to kill. Lu Ming spoke. His voice was very calm, without a trace of panic. He had already seen through the cultivation of these people. The strongest burly man was only a perfected spirit god. Lu Ming did not take him seriously at all. That's right. If we don't kill you and you spread the news, not only will we not be able to continue, but we will also be surrounded. So you must die. The burly man revealed a ferocious smile. He took a step forward and appeared in front of Lu Ming. A pitch-black saber appeared in his hand, emitting a cold, murderous intent. He slashed at Lu Ming. But in the next moment, the burly man was stunned. The others were also stunned. This was because Lu Ming merely stretched out one palm and pinched the battle saber gently. Regardless of how the burly man tried, he could not pull out the battle saber. The battle saber was pinched by Lu Ming and was as steady as a rock. How is this possible? The burly man roared madly. His voice was filled with disbelief. Boom! The quintessence in Lu Ming's body burst out. A terrifying energy flowed from his fingers and blasted into the other party's saber. 1. The saber violently vibrated, and the berserk power flowed through the saber into the burly man's body. The burly man's body violently shook, and he could no longer hold on to the saber. His body madly retreated, and he spat out large mouthfuls of blood. Kill! Lu Ming suddenly shouted, and a terrifying killing intent burst out like a tide. He took a step forward, and his palm slashed out like a blade towards the burly man. That terrifying power caused the burly man's heart to tremble. Block it! The tall and sturdy man roared madly. He used bloodline fusion and erupted with his full strength, hoping to block Lu Ming's move. Bang! The moment they exchanged blows, the burly man's bloodline, as well as his body, was torn apart. Even the spirit divinity couldn't escape, and was killed by Lu Ming in a single move. Ordinary perfection stage spirit god realm martial artists were as weak as babies in front of Lu Ming, and couldn't withstand a single blow. How could this be? Run! When the remaining few people saw this scene, their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Then, they screamed in horror and fled in all directions. It's too late to run now! Lu Ming sneered, and his figure flashed rapidly. Soon, a few miserable screams resounded in the mountain forest. The remaining few people were all killed by Lu Ming, and their storage rings were all in Lu Ming's hands. Lu Ming's figure flashed, and he left this place. Not long after, Lu Ming left the Red Devil Mountain, and sat cross-legged on a mountain peak that wasn't very high, waiting for news. Those guys have been killing and robbing. I wonder if there's anything good? Since he had nothing to do, Lu Ming took out the storage rings of the few people he had just killed, and casually counted them. These guys were indeed very rich. The total amount of origin stones was close to 50 million, and there were also various kinds of spirit weapons and spirit herbs. Obviously, these guys had robbed many people during this period of time, and they were filthy rich. Suddenly, a metal box caught Lu Ming's attention. Lu Ming opened the metal box, and found a rolled-up picture inside. The picture was made of some unknown material. It was light in his hand, and the texture was very soft. Lu Ming opened it, and his eyes couldn't help but narrow. It seemed to be a map, but the drawing was very complicated. The lines crisscrossed, and for a moment, Lu Ming was a little dazzled. Map? Could it be related to the pure spirit body? Lu Ming's heart couldn't help but move, and then he smiled and shook his head. It couldn't be so coincidental that he could get the map of the pure spirit body after killing a group of bandits. I'll find some time to study it. Lu Ming smiled faintly and put away the map. He then meditated and adjusted his breath, waiting quietly. 3 days passed, and many people came out of the Red Devil Mountain. In these few days, many experts had almost turned the entire Red Devil Mountain upside down, but there was no news of the pure spirit body. Damn, I've probably been tricked. If I find out who tricked me, I'll cut him into 8 pieces. Damn it, there's nothing here. What a waste of time. Some experts cursed and left the Red Devil Mountain. Lu Ming also left the Red Devil Mountain and returned to the city. When everyone returned to the city, they heard an important piece of news. It was said that someone had obtained a map to find the pure spirit body. Through the map, one could find the location of the pure spirit body. There were already many experts chasing after the person who had the map. And the direction was south, toward the sea. When the news came out, it caused a commotion. Many experts hurried out of the city and flew toward the south. Map? Lu Ming's eyes flashed, and he couldn't help but think of the map he had obtained from the group of bandits. There can't be 2 maps, right? Lu Ming shook his head, and also left the city, heading toward the south. Everyone was as fast as lightning. They crossed a long distance and finally stopped at a swamp. Because there were many people around the periphery of the swamp. The person who obtained the map is a supreme being. Someone spread the news, and most people's expressions changed. If a supreme being obtained the map, who could snatch it from him? Warriors below the supreme being level were simply courting death. No wonder so many people surrounded the periphery of the swamp and didn't dare to enter. I know which supreme being it is. It should be the 100 Poisons supreme being. He obtained the map and fled into the endless swamp. There are already supreme being experts in there. I heard that the son of the southern divine palaces sea suppressing general led many supreme beings in there. It's definitely going to be a big battle. Many people were discussing. This news made most of the warriors stop in their tracks, and they didn't dare to enter. Obviously, the endless swamp would become a battlefield for supreme beings. If others entered, there was no hope of obtaining the map, and they might even lose their lives. Whoosh! Suddenly, a figure rushed into the swamp and disappeared. Who is that? How dare he enter? Nonsense, that's a supreme being. Chapter 1279. At the same time that supreme exalts appeared from time to time, it caused everyone to be shocked and slightly excited. This time, countless supreme exalts would be drawn over. Look, who's that? He actually dares to go in. Suddenly, someone cried out. Everyone looked over and noticed a young man was walking through the air towards the swamp. This young man was naturally Lu Ming. It really is him. That kid really doesn't want to live anymore. He actually dares to charge in. How audacious! In my opinion, he isn't audacious, and he's overestimating his ability. He's blinded by greed. A battle between supreme exalts is extremely dangerous. Once one is affected, then only death awaits. This kid will die a long time ago. Exactly. He's overestimating his ability. How old does he look? How formidable could his cultivation be? Lu Ming's flight towards the swamp caused a wave of discussion. Lu Ming heard these discussions clearly, but Lu Ming couldn't be bothered to pay attention to them. He flew forward by himself and vanished in the blink of an eye. But then again, it's rare to see so many supreme exalts fighting. Wouldn't it be a pity to miss it just like that? That's true. Could it be that you want to go in and watch? That's too dangerous. We'll hide in the distance and watch. If the situation isn't right, then we'll retreat right away. There shouldn't be any problems. Someone spoke and revealed an expression of desire. A battle between supreme exalts was rare. Especially when many supreme exalts were fighting, it was extremely beneficial to some 9th-level Spirit God Realm cultivators and especially Perfection Stage Spirit God Realm cultivators. Perhaps watching supreme exalts utilize the embryonic form of domains would arouse inspiration and allow some Perfection Stage Spirit God Realm cultivators to comprehend the embryonic form of domains more quickly and step into the exalt realm. These words caused many people to reveal expressions of desire. Let's go. It should be fine if we watch from afar. That kid from before probably had the same thought. Someone spoke, and then he flew towards the swamp. Since there was a first, there was a second. After that, many people flew towards the swamp. Some 8th level, 9th level, and Perfection Stage Spirit God Realm experts rushed towards the swamp. Of course, people with lower cultivations really didn't dare to enter the swamp because the gap between them was too great. If a battle were to occur, then they wouldn't even be able to flee. Lu Ming continued forward. All around him was a boundless swamp. However, along the way, from time to time, he would see traces left behind by great battles. Lu Ming followed these traces and chased all the way. An hour later, several figures appeared in the void ahead. There were 3 of them. One was an old man, and the other was a middle-aged man. All of them had powerful auras. They were actually all Supreme Being level experts. However, these 3 people were standing around a young man, protecting him in the middle. It was obvious that this young man was their leader. Only at the 3rd level of the Spirit God Realm. With a sweep of his spiritual sense, Lu Ming discovered that this young man was only at the 3rd level of the Spirit God Realm. It could be said that his cultivation was very low, and Lu Ming didn't take him seriously at all. However, this young man's identity was obviously very unusual, and he had several supreme beings guarding him. The other party also saw Lu Ming. That young man glanced coldly at Lu Ming. "Humph, you overestimate yourself. You actually dared to chase me all the way here. You're really courting death." The young man snorted with a disdainful sneer on his face. Swoosh! At this moment, a figure flew over from afar. It was a white-haired old man, and he was also a Supreme Being level expert. The white-haired old man came to the young man's side and bowed. "Young master, we've found out that 100 Poison Supremacy is hiding in the dark swamp ahead. He used the poisonous gas of the dark swamp to set up a poisonous gas formation. Humph, does 100 Poison Supremacy think that he can stop us with a mere poisonous gas? How naive! Let's attack together and break open the poisonous gas formation and kill 100 Poison Supremacy." The young man gave the order and led a few 9 Heavens Supremes forward. They didn't even look at Lu Ming, completely ignoring Lu Ming. In their opinion, Lu Ming was just a person who came in to watch the show out of curiosity. He posed no threat to them and could be completely ignored. Soon, a dull rumbling sound came from ahead. Obviously, someone had attacked. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed. He stepped out and flew towards the source of the sound. At this moment, a large group of people appeared behind Lu Ming. They were all 8th layer, 9th layer, and even perfect stage spirit god experts. They were all here. There are fluctuations of a great battle ahead. It must be a supreme being. Let's move forward carefully and watch from afar, someone suggested. Everyone nodded and headed towards the source of the sound. Soon, Lu Ming arrived at his destination. In front of him was a dark swamp. Dense black poisonous gas floated above the swamp. It looked extremely terrifying. Within the black poisonous gas, there were inscriptions flickering. Various colorful poisonous gases spread out and combined with the black poisonous gas to display an even greater power. The young man was standing in the void. Beside him were two supreme beings guarding. In front of him, there were three supreme beings attacking the black mist continuously. The terrifying power caused the black mist to tumble, but it couldn't be broken in a short time. Humph! 100 poison supremacy's poisonous gas formation is quite powerful. You two, attack together and break the formation. The young man ordered the two supreme beings beside him. Master, we can't do that. This place is too dangerous. Let's leave. If anything happens to you, we won't be able to explain it to the commander. One of the supreme beings shook his head. The godly ruins continent was too vast. The southern sacred palace ruled over a large area in the southern part of the godly ruins continent, but it was difficult for them to control everything. Therefore, the southern sacred palace would deploy a few commanders to lead the army and guard the various areas. The young man's father was the commander of the southern sacred palace guarding the coastal area. He had a high position and an unfathomable cultivation. There were many experts under his command. This time, he had brought a total of 5 supreme beings for the pure spirit body. It was a huge investment. Who dares to touch me in this coastal area? Don't worry, go and help me break the poisonous gas formation of 100 poison supremacy, the young man ordered. His tone was filled with confidence. But the two supreme beings were still hesitating. Whoosh! Whoosh! At that instant, the space rippled and 2 figures appeared not far away. The auras of the 2 figures were extremely strong, indicating that they were both supreme beings. The young man was overjoyed as he said, I'm the son of the ocean-suppressing great general, Hai Tian. 100 poison supremacy is hiding in the poisonous gas formation. If you help me break the formation, I'll reward you handsomely. The son of the ocean-suppressing great general? The faces of the 2 supreme beings changed slightly, revealing a hint of fear. But it was only a hint. One of them said, We can work together, but if there's a map of the pure spirit body later, we'll compete for it with our own strength. Are you trying to negotiate with me? Hai Tian's face turned cold. Of course, even though you're the son of the ocean-suppressing great general, we're also from the southern sacred palace. The ocean-suppressing great general won't be able to suppress us, one of the supreme beings said with a hollow laugh. They were both supreme beings with extraordinary backgrounds. Even though they were slightly intimidated by Hai Tian, they were not afraid of him. Chapter 1280. In this coastal area, his father was the overlord, and not many people dared to not give him face. But this time, the pure spiritual body had attracted many experts, and some of them were from the southern god palace. They were not afraid of the sea-suppressing marshal. Hai Tian rolled his eyes and pondered for a while, then said, All right, you guys can attack together. After breaking the poison array, we will fight for the pure spiritual body's map with our own abilities. He had brought 5 supreme beings with him, and he was confident that he could suppress the crowd. Ha, count me in! Count me in! At this moment, a few more voices sounded, and a few figures appeared. Each of them had a terrifying aura, and they were all supreme beings. Lu Ming stood not far away, and 1,000 miles behind him, those perfected spiritual god, 9th-level spiritual god, and 8th-level spiritual god martial artists were watching from afar. So many supreme beings, I wonder how many supreme beings have been attracted this time. There are more than 10 in front of us, and there are definitely more. With so many supreme beings, 100 poison supremacy will definitely not be able to keep his map. Some people were talking among themselves, and they looked ahead excitedly. Boom! 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 The supreme beings that came later burst out, and their terrifying auras soared into the sky, stirring up a huge hole in the sky, and it was extremely terrifying. Bright light shone out, and all kinds of terrifying attacks burst out, blasting towards the poison array. Rumble! Under the attacks of the supreme beings, the sky was shattered like tofu, and all kinds of attacks, along with spatial storms, fell towards the poison array. With so many supreme beings attacking together, they wanted to break the poison array with strong means. Sizzle, the poison gas of the poison array was extremely terrifying, and when it came in contact with those attacks, it made sizzling sounds, as if it was corroding those attacks. However, although the poison array was strong, there were 8 supreme beings attacking together. The power of 8 supreme beings attacking together was too shocking, and it could destroy heaven and earth. Although the poison array was strong, it could not withstand such a powerful attack. Whoosh! The poison gas tumbled, and it was annihilated by the terrifying attacks, turning into nothingness. The various colors of the poison gas in front of them slowly faded, and they were slowly annihilated. Then, some inscriptions, under the terrifying power, crumbled one by one. As the inscriptions crumbled, the array collapsed even faster, and the poison gas dissipated even faster. The poison array was about to be broken. Whoosh! Suddenly, a figure shrouded in black poison gas flew out from the poison gas formation and into the distance. 100 Poisons Prime! It's 100 Poisons Prime! Stop him! Hai Tian shouted. Whoosh! 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 With a flicker of their figures, the 8 Supremes executed their movement techniques and chased after 100 Poisons Supremacy. All sorts of attacks were launched at him. 100 Poisons Supremacy was helpless, and could only try his best to dodge. As a result, his speed was greatly reduced, and he was surrounded by 8 Supremacies. Baidu, hand over the map of the pure spirit body. Otherwise, you won't be able to escape death today! Hai Tian shouted as he rushed over with the 2 supreme beings beside him. Ha! What a joke! Why should I give it to you? I paid a great price to obtain the map of the pure spirit body, so why should I give it to you? 100 Poisons Sovereign laughed maniacally. Humph, if you don't give it to me today, you'll die. Hai Tian sneered. Humph, you're just a piece of trash. If you didn't rely on your powerful father, I could kill you with a single breath. 100 Poisons Supremacy glanced at Hai Tian in disdain. You're courting death. Attack, kill this man. Hai Tian's face flushed red as he roared. Hai Tian's talent was average, and he had only awakened an 8th grade High God Realm bloodline. He was far from the top geniuses, and he wasn't even qualified to participate in the Heavenly Divinity Sect's disciple selection. This was his sore point. He was proud and arrogant, and he hated it the most when people said that his talent was inferior to others. If they said that, they would die. 100 Poisons Supremacy dared to call him a piece of trash, which violated his taboo. The 3 supreme beings that obeyed Hai Tian's orders instantly attacked 100 Poisons Supremacy. 3 terrifying attacks enveloped 100 Poisons Supremacy. 100 Poisons Supremacy's face revealed a hint of ruthlessness as he chopped off one of his arms. As soon as the arm fell, it turned into a 7-colored poisonous gas that filled the area. Not good! The faces of the supreme beings turned green when they were hit by the poisonous gas. The other supreme beings also retreated. 100 Poisons Supremacy wanted to take this opportunity to break out of the encirclement. Attack! Don't let him escape! Attack! Hai Tian roared. The supreme beings that obeyed Hai Tian's orders ignored the poisonous gas and attacked 100 Poisons Supremacy with all their might. Meanwhile, the other supreme beings reacted and attacked too. Bang! 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 A great explosion took place between the heavens and earth as the supreme beings exchanged blows. However, 100 Poisons Supremacy was alone, thus there was no way he could escape. In just a few moves, he was severely injured and vomited mouthfuls of blood. Here's the map of the pure spirit body! In the end, 100 Poisons Supremacy had no choice but to take off his storage ring and toss it to one of the supreme beings. This supreme being was not Hai Tian's subordinate. He was overjoyed when he saw the storage ring. He immediately grabbed it and backed away. Hand it over! You're asking for it. The other supreme beings roared as they ignored 100 Poisons Supremacy and charged toward the supreme being. 100 Poisons Supremacy backed away as his body was engulfed in poisonous gas, trying his best to heal his injuries. However, he did not leave immediately. It was obvious that he was unwilling to hand over the map, and was waiting for an opportunity. How dare you steal it from me? I'll kill whoever tries to steal it from me. Hai Tian let out a roar. The 8 supreme beings were engaged in an intense battle, causing terrifying gusts of wind to sweep in all directions. 100 Poison's supremacy storage ring was taken by one person, then another. No one was allowed to monopolize it, as the one who obtained it would be attacked from all sides. I would like to see what the map looks like, Lu Ming murmured as he stepped forward toward the battlefield of the supreme beings. That kid, what is he trying to do? Why is he walking forward? He's courting death. Is he trying to compete for the map too? What a joke, he's overestimating himself. In the distance, the spectators were startled at first, before they began to laugh coldly. Hai Tian was slightly startled too, before he wore a ferocious expression as he said, "Kid, you're courting death. Kill him." At the edge of Hai Tian, a supreme being nodded and waved his hand, unleashing a saber glow toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming glanced at Hai Tian calmly, before he suddenly accelerated and dodged the saber glow, charging toward the battlefield of the supreme beings. Die. On the battlefield, a supreme being who obeyed Hai Tian threw a punch at Lu Ming. Piss off. Lu Ming grunted and threw a punch at his opponent. Haha, this kid dares to exchange blows with a supreme being. Someone sneered, but before he could finish, he was stunned. Chapter 1281. Boom! The 2 fists collided. In this punch, Lu Ming unleashed the power of 9 dragons, which contained 5 types of wills. The hell-suppressing heaven skill was terrifyingly powerful. When the 2 fists collided, the space directly exploded, and the surrounding space spread out in all directions like a spider web. A terrifying force shot out, and then a figure trembled, stepping on the void and retreating wildly, causing the space to tremble violently. To everyone's surprise, this figure was not Lu Ming, but the supreme martial artist, a burly supreme martial artist. And Lu Ming's figure did not move at all. Everyone was stunned, dumbfounded, and somewhat in disbelief. Even the supreme beings who were fighting were stunned and stopped fighting. A young man who looked less than 30 years old actually repelled a supreme being with one punch. How was this possible? Who was this person? Damn it, kill! The supreme being who was repelled reacted and let out an angry roar. He, a supreme being, was actually repelled by a young man with one punch. He felt that he had lost a lot of face. At this time, he no longer cared about snatching the map. He wanted to kill Lu Ming to restore his reputation. 2 pairs of gloves appeared on top of his head. This was his bloodline, a level 6 divine bloodline. The gloves were on his palms, and he punched continuously. The power of his punches increased by several times. The fist force as heavy as a mountain drowned Lu Ming. Kill! True essence boiled, and the power of 9 dragons made Lu Ming's strength soar. He punched continuously with both fists, and exchanged blows with his opponent. Bang! 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 After more than a dozen punches, Lu Ming had the upper hand and suppressed his opponent. In the distance, the martial artists who were watching the battle were dumbfounded, and they were completely speechless. Previously, they thought that Lu Ming dared to come here because he was overestimating himself and was courting death. Or perhaps, Lu Ming was just like them and wanted to watch from afar. But later, Lu Ming actually rushed to the battlefield. They thought that Lu Ming was courting death and was doomed. However, the result was far beyond their expectations. The battle prowess that Lu Ming displayed nearly blinded their eyes. Lu Ming was actually able to fight against a supreme being. Moreover, he was able to suppress a supreme being. This was simply a fantasy. Time to end this, Lu Ming muttered. Above his head, the 3rd bloodline appeared. A gush of energy gushed out from the 3rd bloodline and entered Lu Ming's body. After borrowing the power of the 3rd bloodline, Lu Ming's strength increased greatly. Boom! With one punch, the other party retreated continuously. With another punch, there was a cracking sound, and the sound of bones breaking could be heard from the other party's fist. The bones in his hand had been broken by Lu Ming's punch. Whoosh! The 3rd bloodline turned into a battle sword, tearing through the void, hacking towards the other party. The other party cried out miserably, one of his arms severed by the blood sword. The other party retreated frantically, his face filled with fear. The rest of the 9 Heavens Supremes, including Hai Tian, were astounded. A Supreme Being was injured just like that. What kind of battle prowess was this? Give me the map! Lu Ming targeted one of the Supreme Beings and charged towards him. The 100 Poisons Supreme Being's storage ring fell into his hands. Seeing Lu Ming charging towards him, the Supreme Being's expression changed greatly, and he retreated rapidly. You can't escape! Lu Ming stepped out, charging towards the other party. Boom! Lu Ming's palm struck out, and a ferocious spatial crack appeared in the void. A chaotic spatial storm surged towards the other party. The Supreme Being tried his best to resist, but he was still forced back. Lu Ming's current strength was too strong, far surpassing the average Supreme Beings. Attack! Attack together! This person is too strong! The Supreme Being roared. Yes, attack together! All of you attack! Kill this person first, then fight for the pure spirit body's map! Hai Tian also shouted. He looked at Lu Ming with eyes full of crazy jealousy and hatred. He was jealous of Lu Ming's talent. He looked younger than him, but his cultivation and battle prowess were so terrifying. He was so jealous that he wanted to go crazy. He wanted to destroy Lu Ming and make such a genius disappear from the world. Young master! On the edge of Hai Tian, the 2 Supreme Beings were still hesitating. Attack! I order you to attack and kill this person together! Hai Tian roared angrily. The 2 Supreme Beings had no choice but to attack Lu Ming together. As for the other Supreme Beings, they also attacked Lu Ming together. Lu Ming's battle prowess was too strong, and they felt threatened. If Lu Ming got the pure spirit body's map, it would be difficult for them to get it. Therefore, they planned to get rid of Lu Ming first. 10 supreme martial artists attacked at the same time, charging toward Lu Ming. Their power was extremely terrifying. Roar! A dragon roar shook the 9 heavens, and the 9 dragons' bloodline appeared. Lu Ming performed bloodline fusion, turning into 9 dragons. The power of devouring erupted, enveloping all the supreme beings. Then, the dragon claws continuously stepped out. Bang! Bang! 2 supreme beings were hit by the dragon claws, coughing up blood and retreating. Whoosh! The divine dragon swung its tail, and a supreme being subordinate of Hai Tian also vomited blood and was sent flying. Clang! The lightning cauldron appeared above the 9 dragons, and thousands of lightning filled the air, enveloping the remaining supreme beings. Boom! 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 A series of explosions sounded, and all the attacks of the supreme beings were blocked. Hiss! In the distance, there was a series of gasps, and the cold air almost made their lungs explode. It was too shocking. 10 supreme beings joined forces to attack a young man, but in the end, not only were they blocked by the young man, some of them were even injured. How was this possible? He is Lu Ming of the Divine Wilderness Continent, the #1 genius of the Divine Ruins Continent. Suddenly, a supreme being shouted. This supreme being had gone to watch the selection of the Yuanlu sect, and he recognized Lu Ming. What? He is Lu Ming? The most powerful genius of the younger generation in the Divine Ruins Continent? Didn't he return to the Divine Ruins Continent? Why is he still here? Gosh, it's him. No wonder he is so terrifying. The scene was in an uproar. By now, Lu Ming's name had already spread across the Divine Ruins Continent. Most of the people knew that the Divine Wilderness Continent had emerged as a new force in the selection of the Yuanlu sect's disciples. The most terrifying one was a young man called Lu Ming, who had defeated the other geniuses and won the first place. No one in the younger generation could defeat him. Even if he is the most powerful genius of the younger generation, his combat strength is terrifying enough, someone exclaimed. It was too shocking to be able to remain unscathed under the attacks of 10 supreme beings. Damn it, it's him! Hai Tian gritted his teeth in hatred. Leave it to me, Jiu Long said indifferently. He twisted his body and charged towards the Supreme Being who was holding 100 Poison's sovereign storage ring. That Supreme Being wanted to resist, but after being beaten up by Lu Ming, he no longer dared to resist and threw the storage ring to Lu Ming, who caught it. Lu Ming caught the storage ring, and with a thought, a rolled-up map appeared in Lu Ming's hand. Chapter 1282. Because the feeling this map gave him was almost exactly the same as the map he had obtained from the bandit. The material, texture, and weight were all the same. Lu Ming opened the map and looked at it. Lu Ming was even more stunned. The content of the map was exactly the same as the one he had obtained. There were no changes. There are actually 2 maps. Strange. Lu Ming frowned. Generally speaking, there would only be one such precious map. How could there be 2? Could it be fake? Lu Ming guessed in his heart. Lu Ming, I am the son of the sea-suppressing marshal. I advise you to hand over the map to avoid causing trouble for yourself. Not far away, Hai Tian spoke as he stared coldly at Lu Ming. So what if Lu Ming's talent was strong? He was just a young man from the Divine Wilderness continent. In the coastal area of the Divine Ruins continent, he still had to listen to him obediently. Otherwise, as long as he sent out an emperor, he could easily kill Lu Ming. No matter how talented he was just an ordinary martial artist if he didn't grow up. The 5 supreme beings under Hai Tian surrounded Lu Ming and stared at him covetously. The other supreme beings also stared at the map in Lu Ming's hand with fiery eyes, wishing they could take it for themselves. There really was a map. It seemed that the matter of the pure spirit body was true. The temptation of a pure spirit body was too strong for them. Most of them had almost stopped at the Supreme Being realm for their entire lives. It was too difficult to take another step forward and break through to the Emperor realm. But with a pure spirit body, there was hope. As long as they cultivated a pure spiritual body, on the basis of a pure spiritual body, they might be able to condense a real spiritual body and become a ruler. The temptation of becoming an emperor who could live for 10 to 20,000 years and dominate the world was too strong. Knowing that Lu Ming was strong, they wouldn't give up so easily. Lu Ming's lips curled into an inexplicable smile. He looked at Hai Tian and said, "You want the map? Sure, here you go." With a wave of his hand, Lu Ming tossed the map to another paragon, not the one who took orders from Hai Tian. Everyone was stunned. They didn't expect Lu Ming to hand over the map so easily. Looks like Lu Ming is still afraid of Hai Tian. Everyone had the same thought. Hai Tian sneered. He also thought that Lu Ming was afraid of him. So what if he's talented? If you don't have a backer, won't you still have to listen to me? Hai Tian sneered. Although he knew that Lu Ming had been accepted as a disciple by the Yuanlu's Dragon God Valley, he wasn't afraid since Lu Ming hadn't officially joined the Dragon God Valley yet. He actually didn't give me the map directly. When my big brother arrives, I'll definitely teach him a lesson, Hai Tian thought. Lu Ming threw out the map, causing another chaotic battle. As for Lu Ming, he transformed into his human form and took a step forward, suddenly appearing beside Hai Tian. Hai Tian's expression changed slightly as he scolded. "Lu Ming, what are you doing?" "Nothing. It's just that your face pisses me off. Moreover, you wanted to kill me before. I'm a very vengeful person," Lu Ming said with a faint smile. You dare?" Hai Tian's expression changed drastically. "Slap!" Lu Ming swung his hand and slapped Hai Tian's face. Hai Tian spun dozens of times. One side of his face was swollen. He was completely dumbfounded. Lu Ming dared to hit him? Didn't Lu Ming hand over the map because he was afraid of him? How dare he hit him now? Hai Tian felt that his brain couldn't process the situation. "Young master!" A few supreme martial artists under Hai Tian's command roared angrily and pounced on Lu Ming. "Don't worry, I won't kill you!" Lu Ming smiled and took a step forward. His figure disappeared in the blink of an eye. The reason why Lu Ming didn't kill Hai Tian wasn't because he was afraid of the forces behind him. but because he wanted to use them to decipher the map and find the pure spirit body. The map was very complicated. The more people there were, the higher the chance of deciphering it. After Lu Ming left, Hai Tian finally reacted. He covered one side of his face and screamed crazily. "Ah, damn it, kill him! Lu Ming, you must kill him!" He screamed hysterically, but Lu Ming couldn't hear him anymore. He walked out of the swamp and soon came out of the endless swamp. That guy came out. As soon as Lu Ming came out of the swamp, many eyes looked at him. I knew he would come out. He must have seen the scene of the supreme martial artists fighting inside. It's too shocking, so he ran out in fear. Yes, that must be it. He's just a clown, why bother with him? Voices sounded one after another. Some of them were full of disdain. Lu Ming didn't bother to pay attention to them. He directly left and returned to the city. Not long after Lu Ming left, a group of people came out. They were the group of people who were watching the battle. How was it? How was the battle inside? Did the supreme martial artists fight? Is there any news of the pure spirit body? Many people began to ask. The map with the pure spirit body has appeared. A battle between the supreme martial artists. An expert at the perfected stage of the spirit god realm explained. When he mentioned that the young man from before was Lu Ming, and that Lu Ming had unleashed his prowess and fought against the 10 supreme beings, there was complete silence. You mean? That young man is the most powerful young man, Lu Ming? And he fought against the 10 supreme martial artists, seized the map, and then took the initiative to hand it over in the end? Someone asked in disbelief. That's right. The previous person nodded. The people outside the swamp were dumbfounded. Some of their faces were flushed red from shame. Just now, they were laughing at Lu Ming, saying that Lu Ming was scared. But in fact, Lu Ming was able to fight against the 10 supreme martial artists alone and seize the map from them. His combat strength was beyond imagination. Lu Ming ignored them just now because he didn't care about them. In Lu Ming's eyes, they were the real clowns. Thinking of this, their faces turned red. Not long after, Hai Tian and the others also appeared. In this battle, Hai Tian's side was stronger. He brought a total of 5 supreme martial artists with him, and one of them even awakened a 7th-level divine bloodline. He was stronger than ordinary supreme martial artists. The 5 of them joined forces and seized the map. After Hai Tian seized the map, he disappeared with the experts. Many people guessed that they were studying the map. Many experts secretly sent people to keep an eye on Hai Tian and the others because as long as Hai Tian and the others studied something, they would be able to find some clues. Lu Ming was also studying the map. Of course, he called Dandan along. Dandan was an old antique who was proficient in all kinds of inscriptions. It was best to call Dandan along to study this kind of map. The 2 of them studied the map for 2 days. All the lines on this map converge at the end and lead to a certain place. Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with the nearby geographical location. Otherwise, I would be able to find the destination according to the corresponding geographical location. Dandan said slowly as he walked around the map with his claws behind his back. Oh? Then I'll go by a few maps of the Godly Ruins continent, Lu Ming said. Even if you compare it with the map, it won't be that easy to find. After all, the map's description won't be that detailed. Chapter 1283. Even so, Lu Ming still went to buy a few maps, including maps of the Godly Ruins continent and the ocean, and put them together to study. Just as Lu Ming and the others were studying, a black-robed old man sat cross-legged in a secret room in the city. The black-robed old man's face was full of wrinkles, and his face was ferocious. No, there are too few maps. They won't be able to study it in a short time. I don't have time to continue waiting, so I might as well release a large number of maps. With so many people, someone will definitely be able to find it. I must find the cultivation method of the pure spirit body. It's my only hope. A cold voice came out of the black-robed old man's mouth. Then, a large number of maps appeared in the black-robed old man's hand. He casually took out a map and opened it. It was exactly the same as the one Lu Ming had obtained, and it was all about the pure spirit body. There were not just one or two maps, but many of them, and they were all duplicated by the black-robed old man. A day later, another map of the pure spirit body appeared, and it caused an intense competition. In the end, it was snatched away by a supreme being. But later, more and more maps of the pure spirit body appeared. In the beginning, the competition was still very intense, and supreme beings would make a move whenever a map appeared. But later, it seemed that all the supreme beings had a map, and only spirit god realm experts made a move. Later on, more and more maps appeared, and there were a few hundred maps. Could the maps be fake? Such a situation made many people speculate. Perhaps it was true. Someone had obtained a map first, but he couldn't study it, so he threw out so many duplicated maps in order to borrow the strength of others to find the cultivation method of the pure spirit body. Then, such words were thrown out, and many people were skeptical. But no one would give up easily. After all, the pure spirit body was too tempting. Even if there was only a 1 in 10,000 chance, no one would give up. Many people held the maps and studied them carefully. Later on, some people even gathered together and began to study. A few days later, someone indeed made some progress and flew towards the sea. The location indicated on the map should be overseas. Dandan also came to a conclusion. For a time, countless people gathered together and flew towards the sea. Whoosh! The sea breeze whistled and blew. When they arrived at the seaside, they saw the boundless sea. Swoosh! 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 One figure after another rode the wind and broke the waves, flying toward the sea. There were a few individuals whose auras were especially powerful, terrifying to the extreme. Those were Supreme Being-level experts. Look, that's Hai Tian. The Sea Conqueror has sent even more experts. Someone looked up at the sky. Everyone saw that there were a total of 9 people at the edge of the sea. Each and every one of them had a terrifying and powerful aura. They were all Supremes. However, this time, Hai Tian wasn't in charge. Hai Tian was obediently following behind a man in his 40s with a respectful expression. That's Hai Tian's elder brother Hai Yu. He's a terrifying existence. It's said that Hai Yu has awakened a level 9 divine bloodline. He's already over 40 years old and can step into the martial emperor realm at any time. His combat strength is terrifying. Hai Yu has also come out. With his combat strength, he can easily kill an ordinary supreme being. A few people were discussing among themselves. When Hai Yu was mentioned, they all felt great fear. A 9th grade divine bloodline sovereign! Lu Ming's eyes narrowed. A 9th grade divine bloodline sovereign was absolutely terrifying. Such a person would definitely step into the martial emperor realm. His combat strength couldn't be measured by common sense. If Hai Yu wasn't over 30 years old, he could participate in the heavenly divinity sex selection of disciples. Such a genius combat strength could be imagined after he became a supreme being. Even if Lu Ming were to face him now, he might not have the confidence to win. Hai Yu, Hai Tian, and the others flew toward the sea. Following that, more people flew toward the sea. Lu Ming blended into the crowd and flew together. After flying for a full day, they didn't know how far they had traveled. A small island appeared in front of them. Could it be on this small island? Many people's eyes lit up. No, this small island is only the first location. It's a guiding point, someone said. They found the answer based on the map and the position of the stars in the sky. This small island wasn't the final location. It pointed to the next location. Some people took out the map and studied it together. In the end, they found the right path and continued to fly toward the sea. A day later, they found the second island. Unfortunately, after studying it, it was still not the final destination. It was also a guiding point. If they found this island, they could find the next location. Everyone studied and calculated together. Then, they continued to fly. Another day later, they arrived at the third island. This island was still not the final destination. However, when they arrived here, they encountered a problem. They found a ruin on this island. It was full of abandoned stone pillars. Some people guessed that this was the key to studying the map, but it seemed that something was missing. They couldn't figure out the final route. If something is really missing, these ruins should give us a hint. Dandin frowned and thought seriously. Everyone studied it for a day but found nothing. These ruins are somewhat similar to the stone plate passed down in my family. At that moment, an old man walked to the ruins and took out a stone plate. Buzz! The stone plate vibrated and emitted light. At the same time, the ruins also vibrated and emitted a dazzling light. The ruins and the stone plate resonated with each other. There's a reaction! Someone exclaimed. Look, some routes have appeared! Everyone saw that the stone plate and the ruins were resonating with each other. In the dazzling light, some lines were condensed. These lines seemed to be some routes. Everyone quickly combined it with the route on the map and deduced. Got it! I found the route! Someone shouted excitedly. In the end, everyone worked together and found the next route. They continued to fly toward the sea. Sure enough, I made the right choice. Relying on myself, I can only reach this far in the end. In the crowd, an old man in a black robe revealed an excited expression. Those maps were leaked by this old man. He had obtained the maps a long time ago. After decades of research, he could only find the third island. There was no clue beyond that. Therefore, he copied a large number of maps, hoping to borrow the strength of others to find the method of the pure spirit body. Sure enough, this method worked. In just a few days, the results were greater than his decades of research. Then, they found the fourth island, then the fifth island. 10 days later, they found a total of 9 islands. These 9 islands seemed to have a mysterious connection. They had to find the previous one to find the next one. However, the 9th island seemed to be the final destination. Everyone studied and found that the 9th island was the last island. The next step would be the location of the pure spirit body. Chapter 1284. Everyone studied carefully and finally found that the final destination was at the bottom of the sea. In a secret place at the bottom of the sea. Plop! Plop! Many experts jumped into the sea and headed in the direction of the pure spirit body according to the map. Lu Ming also jumped into the sea. This was the outer sea, and the water was very deep. Everyone kept diving, 100 meters, 1,000 meters, and finally, they reached a depth of more than 100,000 meters. At this depth, the pressure of the seawater had reached a terrifying level. Even a high-grade spirit weapon would be crushed into a ball under such water pressure. The terrifying pressure constantly pressed on Lu Ming. Lu Ming circulated his jinyuan to protect his body, and at the same time, he circulated the concept of water. A mysterious aura circulated around his body, and the water automatically separated and couldn't get close to Lu Ming. Lu Ming looked relaxed, but the others weren't. Puff! A first-level spirit god martial artist's body trembled, and his face turned pale. He spat out a mouthful of blood and didn't dare to continue diving. Instead, he quickly swam upstream. At this point, ordinary low-level spirit god martial artists would have a hard time resisting and would be crushed to death by the huge pressure. Although they were unwilling, they could only leave because they hadn't reached the bottom yet. They had to continue diving and didn't know how deep it would be. The surroundings were pitch black, and there wasn't the slightest bit of light. However, those who could reach this place were all experts with strong eyesight. They could still see tens of thousands of meters away. Whoosh! Everyone continued diving and occasionally checked the map. Soon, they had reached a depth of more than 200,000 meters. The water pressure here was even more terrifying. Many people's jinyuan protection creaked under the pressure, as if it would collapse at any time. At this point, Lu Ming found an underground mountain range. However, because the rocks here were under the terrifying water pressure all year round, their hardness was shocking. They were harder than many strange metals outside, and 100 times harder than ordinary steel. It's under that valley! Dandan stood on Lu Ming's shoulder and pointed at an underwater valley below. Looking from afar, it was pitch black, as if it led to the abyss of hell. Lu Ming nodded and headed towards the valley. Obviously, the others had also noticed and were swimming towards the valley. The number of people who could reach this place was much smaller than before, but there were still about 1,000 people. 1,000 people, like 1,000 tiny fish, swam into the pitch-black valley. Whoosh! All of a sudden, the seawater churned. From a pitch-black cave at the edge of the valley, a colossal creature suddenly pounced out. It opened its bloody mouth and tried to swallow the experts. The berserk aura was frightening. "You're courting death!" Someone roared, and a sword she slashed out at the huge monster. The attacker was a consummate spirit god expert. However, as they were in the deep sea, his strength was greatly suppressed. His sword she slashed out and slashed at the mouth. The sharp teeth of the mouth bit the sword she in half. Then, a scarlet tongue rolled out and wrapped around the expert, pulling him into the mouth. Damn it! The expert in the consummate spirit god realm unleashed all kinds of terrifying attacks. However, they were more than 200,000 meters deep in the sea, and his strength was greatly suppressed. The monster that suddenly pounced out was only equivalent to a consummate spirit god. However, the monster's strength here was far above that of an ordinary consummate spirit god. The human expert in the consummate spirit god realm was no match for the monster at all. He was pulled into the mouth of the scarlet tongue and was bitten in half. Ah! The expert in the consummate spirit god realm let out a shrill scream. However, in the next moment, the scream stopped abruptly. He was bitten into pieces by the monster and swallowed into its stomach. What kind of monster is that? At this moment, everyone saw the monster's appearance clearly. Its body was like a python, but it also looked like an eel. It was very long, and its tail was still in a cave in the valley. Only the upper part of its tail was sticking out. Its body was covered in scales, and its eyes were blood red. It was extremely ferocious. Its mouth was chewing, and it seemed to be eating with relish. Its blood-red eyes stared at the others with greed. Whoosh! In the next moment, it pounced out again and opened its bloody mouth to bite the experts of the human race. "You're courting death!" At this moment, a supreme being shouted coldly and stepped out. With a wave of his hand, the embryonic form of a domain spread out and enveloped the monster. Chi-chi! The monster's scales made sizzling sounds when it was enveloped by the embryonic form of the domain. Die! The supreme being stepped out and appeared on top of the monster's head. He punched out and bombarded the monster's head. Bang! With a boom, the monster roared and retreated. Its head caved in and blood flowed out, but it was not killed. So powerful! Many people's hearts trembled. This monster was too powerful. Judging from its aura, it was only at the consummate spirit god realm. If it was outside, the attack of a supreme being was enough to kill a consummate spirit god. However, the monster was only injured here and was not killed. Obviously, this monster lived at the bottom of the sea all year round. In this place, the monster could unleash its strength while the strength of human warriors was suppressed. The human supreme being's face darkened when he did not kill the monster with one attack. A snow-white battle sword appeared in his hand, and he slashed out. A shocking sword light split the sea and slashed the monster's neck. Splat! Blood dyed the sea red and the monster's head was chopped off. However, the monster was not dead for a while after its head was chopped off. Its lower body frantically retreated, trying to shrink back into the cave. However, it only retreated halfway before its vitality was extinguished, and it became limp and motionless. There are marine monsters at the bottom of the sea. We have to be careful. Someone whispered and increased their vigilance. Once there were creatures at the bottom of the sea, they would definitely be dangerous and not simple. Everyone continued to dive. The valley was too deep. They dived for another 10,000 meters, but they still did not reach the bottom. Whoosh! Whoosh! Suddenly, the sea water surged and there was another boom around the valley. Hiss, hiss, hiss. At the same time, there was a shrill sound that made people's hair stand on end. Then, everyone was shocked to see dozens of behemoths on the walls of the valley pouncing towards them at the same time. "Monster! It's that kind of monster!" someone screamed in horror. This behemoth that suddenly pounced out was exactly the same as the one that appeared before. Its body was as slender as a python, its eyes were blood-red and its mouth was wide open. Its body was covered with scales and it looked terrifying. There were dozens of them here, and each of them had a terrifying aura. Ah! Caught off guard, more than a dozen human warriors were bitten by the monster without any chance to fight back. The sharp teeth chewed them into pieces and they died on the spot. An exceptionally huge monster pounced towards Hai Tian and the others. "You're courting death!" A supreme being roared at the edge of the sea and a spear appeared in his hand. The spear broke through the sea water and fought with the monster. After 3 moves, the monster was nailed to the bottom of the sea. Chapter 1285. Splash! A monster targeted Lu Ming and bit at Lu Ming's head. The dragon power in Lu Ming's body burst out, and his left hand used the devouring power to envelop the monster. The fingers of his right hand lengthened and turned into dragon claws. Pfft! Lu Ming grabbed the monster's head with his right hand and tore it off with all his might. Blood gushed out, but it was all devoured by Lu Ming's devouring power. What a rich blood essence, and the demonic power in it is even more astonishing. After devouring the monster's blood essence and demonic power, Lu Ming was secretly shocked. This monster was also a type of demonic beast, but the demonic power in its body was astonishing. The blood essence in its blood essence was also extremely rich, far surpassing that of ordinary human martial artists. However, Lu Ming's current cultivation had reached a bottleneck. After devouring and refining, it was not of much help to him. Kill! 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 Deep in the sea, a fierce battle broke out. Although the dozens of underwater monsters were powerful, they were still easily killed by the human race's supreme martial artist. In the end, dozens of humans died, but the dozens of monsters were killed one by one. Next, everyone continued to dive, but they were even more cautious. Sure enough, not long after, they were attacked again. It was a strange fish. Its body was not big, and it looked exactly like a stone. Even its aura was like a stone, as if it was lifeless. However, when Lu Ming and the others approached, the stone-like fish suddenly launched an attack. This fish was not particularly strong, but there were many of them, and they were highly poisonous. If a perfected spirit god was bitten by this fish, he would be severely poisoned and paralyzed, unable to fight back. In this battle, dozens of powerhouses died. In the end, they relied on the powerful strength of the Supremes to kill the stone-like fish. However, no one retreated. The temptation of a pure spirit body was too great. Since they had come this far, no one wanted to return empty-handed. Everyone continued to dive. In total, they had dived 300,000 meters into the sea. The water pressure here was simply unimaginable. Moreover, it was pitch black. With Lu Ming's vision, he could only see within 1,000 meters. The others might be able to see even closer. "It's the end," someone said. Everyone relaxed. They had finally reached the bottom. Was the pure spirit body cultivation method here? "Look, there's a crack!" Suddenly, someone shouted. Everyone hurriedly gathered over, and sure enough, they found a crack. It seemed to be a spatial passage. This is a spatial tunnel. The cultivation method of the pure spirit body must be hidden inside. This thought appeared in everyone's mind, and their eyes couldn't help but become fiery. Just as someone was about to charge in, the seawater in the distance churned, and a furious roar rang out. "How dare you invade my ancestral land? All of you must die!" The loud roar was like a dragon's roar, rumbling through the rolling seawater. Then, everyone saw a large group of black behemoths rushing towards them. Demonic beasts, all of them were demonic beasts, and they were all marine demonic beasts. Lu Ming saw huge octopuses, ferocious sharks, and slender eels. The one in the lead was covered in black scales, had dragon horns, and had 4 claws under its belly. It was a flood dragon. It was a black flood dragon. Moreover, the flood dragon had a strong true dragon's aura. It obviously contained a rich true dragon's bloodline. The terrifying aura was enough to make people tremble even if they were far away. Supreme Being, that flood dragon is a Supreme Being expert, and it contains 90% of the true dragon's bloodline. Lu Ming's pupils shrank slightly. A flood dragon with 90% of the true dragon's bloodline was absolutely terrifying. Behind the flood dragon, there were many marine demonic beasts with terrifying auras. Many of them were Supreme Being experts. Not good, retreat! Charge into the spatial tunnel! Many human experts screamed in horror and turned around to charge into the spatial tunnel. You're courting death! The flood dragon roared, and a black dragon claw stretched out. It grew rapidly and clawed at the human experts. Puff! Puff! In an instant, more than 10 high-level spiritual god experts were crushed by the dragon claw. Their bodies and souls were annihilated. Whoosh! The dragon claw didn't stop, and it went for a Supreme Being expert. That Supreme Being expert's face changed. A snow-white saber appeared in his hand, and the saber light was shocking. It broke through the seawater and slashed at the dragon claw. With a loud bang, the saber light shattered. That Supreme Being expert's body shook violently. His face paled, and he vomited blood as he was sent flying. The difference was too big. Even though they were both Supreme Being experts, the flood dragon was no match for the human experts. They were at the bottom of the sea, and the flood dragon had an advantage. Moreover, the flood dragon had 90% of the true dragon's bloodline, and it was the same as the human experts who had awakened a grade 9 high god realm bloodline. He was a genius among geniuses. At this time, some human experts had already charged into the spatial tunnel and disappeared. Kill them all! Seeing this, the flood dragon became even more furious. He roared again and again, and his dragon claw slashed out. Rip! Space was torn apart, and seawater flowed into the spatial crack and disappeared. A dragon claw grabbed at Hai Tian and the others. Protect the young master! At the edge of the sea, several Supreme Beings roared and attacked the black dragon claw together. Boom! 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 The terrifying attack evaporated more than 10,000 tons of seawater, creating a vacuum. Several Supreme Beings joined forces to block the black dragon claw. There are so many experts. Die! Hai Tian and the others attracted the attention of the black flood dragon. It stared coldly at Hai Tian and the others. It let out a dragon roar and pounced towards them. At the same time, several Supreme Being marine monsters followed the flood dragon and pounced towards Hai Tian and the others. The marine monsters had the advantage under the sea. Now that several Supreme Beings joined forces, their power was shocking. Hai Tian's face changed drastically, and he was extremely frightened. Boom! Boom! Several Supreme Beings joined forces, but they were still unable to stop the flood dragon and were sent flying. Big brother, save me! Hai Tian screamed in fear. Rip! Hai Yu stepped out and appeared beside Hai Tian. He activated his embryonic domain, and a huge battle axe appeared in his hand. He swung the axe. Clang! The axe collided with the black flood dragon's claw, and a shocking force was released. The force formed a storm that swept out, and some of the weaker Supreme Beings could not stand steadily. Hai Yu was also in existence who had awakened a level 9 divine bloodline. His battle strength was shocking, and he was not weaker than the flood dragon. Even at the bottom of the sea, he was not much weaker. When the two collided, the flood dragon and Hai Yu's bodies shook slightly, and they retreated a few steps. There's actually an expert like you, but this is the bottom of the sea. Stay here! The black flood dragon roared and attacked Hai Yu. Bring Hai Tian into the spatial tunnel. I'll block them! Hai Yu ordered the other Supreme Beings, and then used bloodline fusion to fight the flood dragon. Splash! Chapter 1286. They were more than 300,000 meters deep at the bottom of the sea. An ordinary spiritual god would probably be crushed to death by the seawater, not to mention stirring the seawater. However, the battle between Hai Yu and the Flood Dragon Supreme could actually stir the seawater within a radius of tens of thousands of meters. It was obvious how terrifying their combat strength was. In the blink of an eye, they had exchanged more than 10 moves. Is this the power of a 9th grade divine rank bloodline and a 90% divine beast bloodline? Their strength is indeed shocking. Lu Ming mixed in the crowd and casually fought with the demon beast. However, his gaze was fixed on the battle between Hai Yu and the Flood Dragon Supreme. Lu Ming was rather solemn at the combat power of the duo. Lu Ming felt that even if he unleashed his full strength now, he would probably not be a match for Hai Yu or the Flood Dragon Supreme. The main reason was that his cultivation was too far away from theirs. If his cultivation broke through to the perfection stage of the spiritual god realm, he was confident that he could fight and even suppress them. But now, he was still a little short. The gap between the 9th level of the spiritual god realm to the perfection stage of the spiritual god realm, and the spirit god realm to the sovereign realm was getting bigger and bigger. It was too difficult to surmount. With Lu Ming's current combat strength, it was more than enough to deal with or even suppress those sovereigns who had awakened a 6th grade divine rank bloodline. However, they were only the most ordinary sovereigns. The higher their bloodline, the stronger their combat strength, and the more difficult it would be to deal with them. Let's go! After watching for a while, Lu Ming had a rough understanding of Hai Yu and the Flood Dragon's supreme strength. Then, he casually killed a sea demon at the perfection stage of the spiritual god realm, and followed the crowd into the spatial tunnel. The space changed. In the next moment, Lu Ming felt the pressure around him lighten, and the true yuan in his body circulated quickly. There's no seawater here, nor is there any pressure from the seawater. This was Lu Ming's first reaction. Then, Lu Ming looked around. At this moment, he was standing in the void. He could clearly see that there was seawater all around him, but it was separated by a layer of transparent material that kept the seawater outside. It was the same in all directions. There seemed to be a layer of restriction that kept the seawater out. There was a spatial rift in the sky. It was the spatial tunnel. Lu Ming and the others had come in through that spatial tunnel. That is, an ancient city. Then, Lu Ming looked ahead. This area was completely occupied by a vast ancient city. An ancient city stood in front of them. It was filled with an ancient aura, as if it had crossed over from the ancient era. The ancient city was vast. At a glance, one could see that it stretched for hundreds of thousands of li. To think that there was such an ancient city hidden at a depth of more than 300,000 meters under the sea. At this moment, some people were already flying towards the ancient city. Clearly, this ancient city was very likely their final destination. The pure spirit body technique was very likely to be hidden in this ancient city. However, Lu Ming saw a strange scene. When some people flew above the ancient city, it was as if they could not fly, or they were affected by a powerful gravitational force. They could not stay in the air and quickly descended into the ancient city. It seems like you can't fly in this ancient city. Lu Ming's heart stirred. 1. Suddenly, the space around Lu Ming trembled, and several figures appeared. Hai Yu, one of them was Hai Yu. Most of the remaining ones were sea monsters, such as the Flood Dragon Sovereign. Kill! The moment the Flood Dragon Sovereign appeared, he wanted to kill Hai Yu. However, Hai Yu was not in the mood to fight. He took a step forward and flew towards the ancient city. Lu Ming did not hesitate either. He used his movement technique and flew towards the ancient city. Kill all these humans! The Flood Dragon Sovereign ordered and chased after the ancient city with the sea monsters. When Lu Ming flew above the ancient city, there was indeed an extremely powerful gravitational force. Even with Lu Ming's cultivation, it was difficult for him to maintain flight. He could not help but fall below the ancient city. Lu Ming landed on a street in the ancient city. Hai Yu and the others landed on another street. As soon as he landed on the street, Lu Ming's expression changed slightly. At this moment, he felt the bloodline of the prison-suppressing monument trembling slightly. Lu Ming realized that when he stepped on the ground, he seemed to be able to fuse with the earth with the help of the bloodline of the prison-suppressing monument. At this moment, he felt that the earth concept seemed to be restless, as if it could break through at any time. This ancient city is 300,000 meters below the sea. It's close to the earth's core. When I step on the ground here, it resonates with the earth. I can clearly sense the earth concept. Touch! Lu Ming thought in his heart, and guessed the general reason. Perhaps this is an opportunity for me to break through to the peak of the 4th level of the earth concept. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with anticipation. If his earth concept broke through to the peak of the 4th level, Lu Ming could continue to devour and refine origin stones and break through to the peak of the spirit god realm. Then, the next step would be to comprehend the embryonic form of the domain and break through to the sovereign realm. Boom! Boom! Not far away, there was a rumbling sound. It was obvious that someone was fighting. Let's go. Even if there is a pure spiritual body cultivation technique, it must be in the depths of the ancient city. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He took a step forward and rushed towards the depths of the ancient city. Ah! Suddenly, a shrill scream came from in front of Lu Ming. Could it be that someone is killing each other? Lu Ming raised his eyebrows and continued to move forward. Ah! Not long after, another shrill scream rang out. The scream contained despair and terror, and it caused one's entire body to go cold. It doesn't sound like the scream of someone killing each other. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't help but be careful. He also slowed down his speed. Hoo! Suddenly, Lu Ming felt a chilly wind blowing on his body, making his hair stand on end. Be careful, Dandan suddenly warned. At the same time, Lu Ming also felt a cold aura approaching him from behind. Lu Ming suddenly turned around and threw out a punch. Boom! The fist energy pierced through the space and a pitch-black space tunnel appeared. However, there was nothing. Lu Ming didn't see anything or any living thing. However, at this moment, Lu Ming felt a cold aura on his neck that was getting closer to him. Swoosh! Lu Ming's palm was like a blade. He slashed out horizontally and swept in all directions. However, when his palm swept across, it was still empty. There was nothing. What the hell is this? Dandan, did you notice? Lu Ming frowned and looked around carefully, but he still found nothing. I didn't notice it either, Lu Ming. This place is very strange. It should be the residence of a powerful existence, Dandan said. You don't have to tell me that. Lu Ming curled his lips. To be able to move an ancient city to a place 300,000 meters deep under the sea, even an ordinary emperor couldn't do it. Only a terrifying existence could do it. How could the residents of such a powerhouse be ordinary? Ah! At this moment, another scream came from ahead. It was extremely shrill. Who cares what it is? Since it doesn't dare to appear, I'll continue forward. Lu Ming's eyes were bright. The dragon power in his body erupted. He was ready to fight at any time and stepped forward. In the ancient city, screams could be heard from time to time. What the hell is this? Get out here. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.